Coming up, can the Knights find a halfback to go 3 in a row in the finals? Will the Cowboys avoid an unceremonious ride off into the sunset? And does the grand final beckon for the Eels and the Panthers? Yes, hello, and welcome to the Sideline Chat podcast, a one-stop shop for rugby league. Along with Mark Hendry, I'm Connor Marcellus, and today it is part 3 into our 2022 NRL previews, and we start off with the Newcastle Knights.
Where do we start with them? Seriously, I don't know what happened to them last season. They just could not perform.
Well, it's not that they couldn't perform. It's just they got extremely unlucky, but poor performances were a lot more common than first thought.
Well, that is true.
Because we got to remember, they started off back-to-back wins. Okay, first 2 weeks, they started off strong, but that's only the first 2 weeks. And then they lose Mitchell Pearce, suffering a pec injury in his milestone game. It was his 300th game, wasn't it? It's from memory?
Yes, from memory, yes.
So he goes down in that game. The Tigers come up victorious. Then they lose a winnable game against St. George Illawarra thanks to a Tarek Sims double charge down.
I love that game.
And then David Fafita just exposes them as pretenders running over the top of them. Literally, 5 of them over the top.
Yeah. Well, generally, the Knights start off well and then just slide away.
Well, really, they have not been able to put consistent performances together. This is practically the Bulldogs 2016 style.
Yeah.
Where they are consistently inconsistent, go on a run at the back end of the season, and then fall flat in straight sets out of the finals. This is exactly what happened here. They might get 1 win on the board and then go 2 losses, or they might get 4 wins or 5 wins at the back end of the season up, but then conk out in the last 2.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what has happened here. Yeah, and there were some embarrassing scorelines in and amongst it all. Old Boys Day with the Old Boys. On the 20th anniversary of the 2001 Grand Final, Parramatta rolling them 40-4.
Oh.
And then back-to-back weeks against both the Storm and the Roosters, getting absolutely carved up between the two of them. Only 3 tries they scored all up and eating upwards of 12 against Melbourne and the Roosters.
Yeah. That's
just simply not good enough.
No, it's not. Not expecting on Old Boys Day, the anniversary of the Knights Parramatta Grand Final, I was expecting a lot closer game than what that scoreline said. Like, seriously. It's Old Boys Day. Represent the Old Boys and that milestone or the anniversary, I should say, of that grand final.
But they did rally back, and I think that's important. They did start playing well at the back end of the year to get themselves into that finals equation. 5 wins from the final 6 games, but couldn't overcome Parramatta in the elimination final.
Well, no, they couldn't. Not at all. But they can say they made the finals, though. It's not like they didn't make the finals. They made the finals, but...
But it's like, someone asks you the question, so the Knights made the finals last year. Where did you finish again? And you just have to answer, 7th?
Yeah.
Not impressive. Not impressive. Not if you make the semi-finals. It's like, so you finished 7th and you made it to the semi-finals. Okay, well, that's actually more impressive that you made it that far. Or the preliminary final, but...
Or grand final. But yeah, no.
No, that would have been insane. That would have been ridiculous.
Yeah, true. That would have been true.
It's, look, really, losing Mitchell Pearce was a big blow for them. But gaining Jake Clifford from North Queensland, I feel like he played better football with the Knights than he did at the Cowboys.
I have to agree. When Clifford joined mid-year, or mid-year? Yeah.
Yeah, mid-year.
Yeah, when he joined the Knights in mid-year, he instantly made an impact. And he played heaps better football straight away.
13 appearances he made for Newcastle last year, which included 2 tries and 33 goals all up at the back end of the year. But I got to say, I don't know what to make of Tyson Frizzell.
Yeah.
In 2021. Clemmer, he's fallen off a cliff. Daniel Safidi played exceptionally well, and Jacob really started to flex some muscle.
Yes.
But they're not my standout players. The standout player for me, Anari Tuwala.
Yeah.
I think this was his most consistent year to date we have seen in the NRL. In 25 appearances, he scored 13 tries, 2 try assists, 46 tackle breaks, and 16 line breaks. And he was, in fact, the Cowboys' top try scorer with 16 when all said and done.
Well, then there you go.
Well, I think that's including finals as well.
I'd say so, yeah.
But all my information is out of date. Either way.
No, but it was one of his best seasons to date. He had an outstanding season. And I can see why I agree with you, and you chose Tuwala as the player of the season for the Knights.
Yeah, absolute, very consistent performer. As to play out on the flank, I think, and with guys like Dominic Young, big body like that breathing down his throat, I think he did rather well to try and stave him off.
That is true, because, even though Dominic Young, I thought he might have got a bit more game time. But when he did play...
But he made up for it. I mean, he practically has a 66% try scoring rate at the moment.
Yeah. So the pressure was on for Tuwala to keep his starting spot with Young breathing down his neck, but he held off that threat very, very well indeed.
Well, someone who couldn't break into the Knights backline, who decided to defect to the West Tigers, now looking at the roster rotation, Stafford Toa departing for the West Tigers. Mitchell Pearce, of course, well publicised that he was going to join the Catalan Dragons in the Betfred Super League and didn't go well to begin with. Josh King leaving for the Melbourne Storm. Gahamet Shibasaki joining the NEC Green Rockets in the Japanese rugby competition. Connor Watson returning home to the Sydney Roosters, and Blake Green retiring with the club.
And on the signing front, they've got Dane Gagai back from a 4-year absence from the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and Adam Clune from the Dragons.
This was always going to be the big question for the Knights. Who are they going to replace Mitchell Pearce with?
Well, there's been numerous names thrown around, but I reckon it's going to be Adam Clune.
So you reckon Adam Clune will be there in round 1 as the starting halfback for the Knights?
Yep. Clifford, Clune, halves combination for the Knights round 1. And
we'll
for the season.
Well, we'll see how exactly that will pan out, because the first 5 rounds is not exactly kind to them. Starting off with the first game of the season against the Roosters at the Sydney Cricket Ground.
Yeah.
Anyone up for a $1.30 bet on the Roosters right now?
Yep.
First home game of the season on a beautiful Sunday afternoon in Newcastle, taking on the West Tigers. That will probably be a very competitive game. And given Jackson Hastings will make somewhat of a difference to the Tigers.
Yes.
Then round 3 against the Premiers at Bathurst. Can we get at I'll go Penrith 13 plus there.
Yeah.
April Fool's Day, round 4, they are facing the Cronulla Sharks at PointsBet Stadium. Yeah, it really hasn't been kind to PointsBet in recent times for Newcastle.
True, but could they change things around? Because it's been a while since any club has played there.
Round 5, I'm back at home in front of the Channel 9 cameras against the Manly Seagulls, and because it's an Easter Sunday game, I will include round 6 away to St George Illawarra.
Yeah. That Easter Sunday match against Manly.
No, that's against the Dragons.
Sorry.
Round 5 against Manly.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, I was going to say if that Manly game was at home on Easter Sunday, it would have been absolute sellout crowd. But as
it'll be a sellout at the Gong. Don't get me wrong. It'll be a sellout.
It'll be a sellout at the Gong. But I thought if the Knights were at home, it would have been a sellout up at McDonald Jones as well.
Well, 4 Pines Park is going to be sold out if they play again.
More than likely.
If they do play twice this year from memory.
I think they do.
Well, there you go. Now, one of the interesting things is, of course, all the talk has been about Kalen Ponga and whether he's staying or he's going. Now there's interesting revelations coming, of course, from the Daily Telegraph that in order to keep him at Newcastle and away from rugby union, they're going to give him the co-captaincy.
Okay.
Yeah, with Jaden Brayley missing for the majority of the first half of the season, they're going to give Ponga, more than likely, alongside Daniel Safiti, the co-captaincy.
More pressure put on Ponga then. He's already got enough pressure. Then he's already got enough pressure on his shoulders, but adding the co-captaincy role, yeah, they might add a bit more.
Well, that's the question. Will he thrive under this pressure, as has Ben Hunt, I should say, or is he going to fold? Also, like Ben Hunt in the 2015 Grand Final.
Yeah, links are related everywhere. I personally like he will be a good leader. Don't get me wrong, but he's already got enough pressure on the field. So adding that extra pressure on a co-captaincy, I don't think he'll perform as well. To be quite honest with you.
We also have to keep into consideration the Andrew Johns factor, considering he's there as a halves coach for the Newcastle Knights. And with Joey there, considering what he did at the Roosters with Luke Keary and Cooper Cronk, and what he tried to do at the Eels with Dylan Brown and Mitchell Moses, could the Joey effect rub off on him too?
I don't know. I know Joey's more of a halves, like he's focused on the halves and that. But with
you're
Joey,
talking about single-handedly Newcastle's greatest champion, and not to mention their favorite son, not Matty.
Yeah. Oh dear, sorry, Matty.
Well, you have the title of the Eighth Immortal, and then there is the Eighth Immortal's brother.
Yeah.
It's just like,
yeah, you're going to get left in the dust. But
yeah, so all right,
with
final prediction time.
Well, with the Eighth Immortal there, that will maybe help Ponga a bit, but with the captaincy, he probably won't perform as well. We really need to know who's going to be the halves combination alongside Clifford. Like I've already said, Adam Clune. There's still talks about Luke Brooks. There's now talks about Anthony Milford, depending on his court case. And there's also Phoenix Crossland there. So there's a few names thrown around. Two of them are signed with the club and one of them hasn't. So it's have to see with the trial matches that are coming up, who's going to be there alongside Clifford.
You're right. The halfback question really troubles me at this point because you're replacing Mitchell Pearce with, well, it's either going to be Jake Clifford, who struggled for consistency in a very poor Cowboys side, or it's going to be Adam Clune, who was sort of like a bright spark in a struggling Dragons outfit.
Yeah, and he is quite capable because he has replaced Ben Hunt and did exceptionally well. So he's just underrated at the Dragons, and his talent didn't get shown as much. So as I mentioned earlier, it'll be a Clifford Clune halves combination.
Yeah, that definitely seems like the most likely there. But I mean, Newcastle really haven't looked at their roster and thought, is this the best halfback we could get? And I mean, looking at well, it's really been only one other signing. That's Dane Gagai, who's going to be playing with Hymel Hunt on the right edge with Bradman Best still on the left edge with Tuala.
Yeah,
I just think they're lacking that direction and leadership that Pearce could have given them and that confidence. And I just think Newcastle, they're in trouble. I will say it point blank, they are in trouble.
Big time.
Absolutely, and I think they will really regret letting Mitchell Pearce go. So, final prediction. Last year, the Knights finished 7th and were knocked out in the elimination final against the Eels. I think they're going to slide back backwards greatly, and I think they will slide to as low as 12th on the ladder.
They're going to slide back, but I'm going to say one back from you and say this slide down to 13th on the ladder.
So one that's is finishing just outside the bottom four, the other saying in the bottom four.
Yeah.
But regardless, Newcastle's run of finals is going to come to a very sharp end.
Yes, but we never know. They could surprise us, but
well, they definitely could. It'll be a surprise for everyone. Now, the North Queensland Cowboys 2021 season. Yeah, it was a disaster as well.
Yep, yet again, another club that's struggling.
This was Todd Payton's first year in charge of the Sharks. It was just this disaster. I mean, I'm sorry, of the Cowboys. I was thinking Josh Hannay, on the mind for a moment. And it was probably worse than Paul Green's final half season with North Queensland.
I could probably agree with you with that.
0-4 to start the year, where they get nil by Penrith, lose to the Dragons in a competitive game, with the Titans and the Sharks then flogging them in quick succession before finally overcoming the Tigers. I mean, they win 3 games in a row. One of those that they almost lost. The other one, let's not talk about it. But after they beat the Warriors in tight circumstances, they just got smacked around. And really, they would have been last if not for other clubs beneath them.
Yeah, look, it was very surprising to see the Cowboys not finish last year. I remember a game that got moved from Sydney. It was the Rabbits Cowboys game, and up in Newcastle because of I should say something we're not allowed
unspecified to say. Virus of unknown origin.
Yes, and they did not perform. Like Souths were all over them in that match, and that's what pretty much all the season was about.
Well, the Cowboys jumped out to an early shock lead that really forced the issue with the Rabbits, but they couldn't back it up, and South Sydney ended up rolling them in the back end.
Yeah, and that was the story of the whole Cowboy season.
That 9-game losing run between June in the Origin period with no Tom Trbojevic against Manly to losing the Parramatta on the Gold Coast, one reprieve beating St. George Illawarra in whereabouts was that? Was that Rockhampton that game? Or was that?
I think it was like Queensland Country Bank, I believe.
No, Brown Park. I think it wasn't. It was somewhere in rural Queensland. I think from memory. Just it's very.
But then it might have been
Rockhampton.
Yeah,
Rockhampton. That's what it was.
Well, there we go.
And then, of course, the freakish nature of Tom Trbojevic in the final game of the season, embarrassing them 46-18.
Yeah. That it's not good enough. And I personally believe since they made the Triumph year in 2015, they've been slowly going down the slide. Yes, they did.
They have been sliding backwards ever since their premiership win.
They just scraped into the 2017 grand final.
Yeah.
Just scraped in there. So that was a bit of a high, but just. But then that's just gone downhill ever since then. So there's something up with the Cowboys. I don't think it's the coach. I think it's more further up than the coach.
Well, declining squad. I mean, Valentine Holmes is not worth $1 million, yet they played him literally anywhere in the back line that they could. Taumalolo is no longer the most dominant lock forward in the game.
No, I could like the 60-game rule.
He's just not dominant enough. I mean, Cam Murray and Isaiah Yeo are probably amongst 2 of the best locks in the game right now. Jake Trbojevic, Victor Radley, probably a close 3rd and 4th.
Yeah, I have to agree with that.
But Taumalolo is not that same Taumalolo. That's the barnstorming forward we all know.
And that they signed on a 10-year contract with $1 million per season.
It's just one try in 15 games he scored, which is probably low even by his lofty step as that he's set for himself.
I have to probably have to agree with you there. He when he was at his barnstorming best, he was getting what a try nearly every match, every two
Si-
games.
At his best, he was scoring 6 tries a year. That was both in 2014 and 16, but it's been slowly going down ever since then. He's still running hard, but he's just not get it and the impact the Cowboys need. He's just
But I
what has he
say
got?
I honestly don't know. I'd say the rule changes, especially six again, has affected that. And
And
without the likes of Jonathan Thurston being there as well, has probably played a massive play.
and the other thing too is his workload is greatly diminished. Which I think this was the other issue with Todd Payton as well. He wasn't playing Taumalolo for big minutes. Now I know he's probably trying to argue the right thing, prolong his career by reducing his workload, but you're also reducing the Cowboys' win ratio at the same time.
Yeah. We need to play Tolomolo big minutes to have an effect on the game.
And he's just not getting it.
No.
Now, the best player, or there really weren't that many standouts for the Cowboys in 2021.
No.
But it would have to go to Scott Drinkwater.
Yeah.
In 24 appearances, he scored 5 tries, 17 try assists, 11 from 14 goals converted with 44 tackle breaks. He is someone who could be a point of difference.
But he needs a halves player that goes alongside that.
Well, that's the question. He did have one in Jake Clifford. That didn't work out. Michael Morgan, of course, retired due to medical injuries. He's with that shoulder that couldn't get reformed. And we will talk more about the Cowboys roster. Of course, we just mentioned Michael Morgan forced into medical retirement due to his shoulder. Justin O'Neill and Jarbid Bowen both entered retirement. Josh McGuire was released midway through 2021 to join St. George Illawarra, as Wiramu Greg, but to the Parramatta Eels on a mid-year release. Isan Masters let go mid-year to join the Gold Coast Titans. And of the signings that left at the end of the year, Corey Jensen departing to the Brisbane Broncos, Francis Molo to St. George Illawarra, Peter Holler joining the Canberra Raiders, and Shane Wright off to the Salford Red Devils.
And speaking of halves and that, could we see Chad Townsend, who's joined from the Sharks partner
via the New Zealand Warriors?
Yes. Peter Hickey from the Warriors as well. Jermaine Tanuna-Brown also
from the Warriors.
Yes. And Brandon Elliott coming back to
from the Leeds Centurions.
Yes.
Along with other rookie signings, including Jordan Lipp, Morgan McWhirter, and Tyrese Woods.
So could Townsend be the man to partner Scott Drinkwater? That will definitely the half starting combination of Drinkwater and Townsend, but how will Townsend perform?
Well, we'll just have to see how that does pan out, because over the first 5 rounds, the Cows have got the Bulldogs at home. We all know which way I'm siding with that one.
Yep, same here.
Back-to-back home games for round 2 up against the Canberra Raiders. Canberra looking for a bounce back. I can square up from last year.
Yeah.
Sunday afternoon, they've got the Brisbane Broncos in Brisbane.
Ooh.
Spicy, but yes, Brisbane is the one. Back at home again, this time hosting the Roosters.
Goodbye, Cowboys.
Can I get a check for 50 points in that game?
Oh, that's a big call.
I think a check. If you concede 50, you can't win the premiership. And finally, round 5, a trip down to Redcliffe to take on the New Zealand Warriors.
Even then, just going back onto the Brisbane Cowboys game, they used to be such close games, that Queensland Derby match, but even them, they've slid off the scale there, because it's all been one-way traffic in favour of Brisbane, and the occasional Cowboys win. They're not as close as what they were.
No, well, it's still a good derby fixture, don't get me wrong, but you would have to say it has lost some of its shine.
It's like you can kind of predict it a bit more than what you could, say, 5 years back. But yeah, it needs to.
If they were both top 4 contenders year in, year out, with the Broncos and the Cowboys. This would be a fixture you'd want to pencil in, but now,
It's not.
well, it still is, but it's
It is, but it's not as what it used to be.
yeah, just somewhat the gloss taken off.
But does that come down? That I think is more on the Cowboys side than the Broncos side. To be quite honest with you,
No, we'll see.
I'm not saying Cowboys are a bad team, but they're not as good as what they were. Like I said back.
Well,
in
I'm
the
saying they're a bad team.
Well, I don't want to give them. I don't want a bad word them, but like I said, since the 2015 Grand Final, it's gone downhill.
Now, look, I mean, Townsend is a good half, but he's not that same half that guided the Sharks into the top four or against all the odds.
No, it's not.
It's just, I don't know where the Cowboys go from here. I mean, they got some good young forwards in there, but they also got a whole bunch of deadwood. Like Jordan McLean, not as dominant as what he was made out to be. After leaving Melbourne, Jason Taumalolo, what do you do with him? Valentine Holmes. I mean, for God's sake, they're talking about playing him at centre this year with the Hammer moving the fullback.
I have heard that, yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong, the Hammer's a bloody brilliant speedster, but you want him out on the flank. You want him to be your top try scorer year in, year out. It's an aging roster. They're really going to struggle, and I don't see any way out for them.
So, are you going to say, or am I going to say it, or I don't know, are you leaning towards maybe a coach getting sacked earlier on in the season?
Well, this will be Todd Payton's second season. Is he safe? Depends how he starts. I would have to say, because you could start well, plateau in the middle, decline, and then get pushed out before you even have a chance to say, save me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if Todd Payton is the first man to be sacked in this season.
No, he won't be, but he could be one of the coaches that do get sacked this season.
Yeah. I definitely think he would be amongst that category. He's just got nothing.
He's under a lot of pressure.
He genuinely, looking at the best sides in the league, he's got nothing compared to them.
No. But is this because the Cowboys haven't gotten over the fact that JT's still not there?
I think they'll never get over.
No.
Losing Jonathan first. I think you look at the results since he retired.
Downhill. Just downhill.
And the Cowboys offered so much in the eyes of the NRL to have them and the Broncos be the torchbearers for the modern heartland of rugby league, in Queensland. But you look at it now, the most dominant team, the pride, the modern day pride of the league and the heartland. I mean, it's returning to Sydney and heading west. It's Penrith. It's Parramatta. It will be Canterbury again.
Yeah.
They are the sides which are showing that once again, it is New South Wales that is the true heartland of rugby league.
Yeah. It's not good for the Cowboys at all.
It is not good in the slightest. Now, it could turn around. I'm not going to say it's going to stay that way forever. It could turn around back in the Cowboys' favor, but right here, right now, it's nowhere.
Nah.
Last year, the Cowboys finished 15th on the ladder after I predicted them to be the wooden spooners. I'm sticking with that genuine belief that the Cowboys will hit the wooden spoon again. So I'm going to say for the second year running, they will finish 16th.
Yeah, they'll be definitely trying not to get the spoon, but they will be also in that battle of getting the spoon. They finished 15th last year. I've got them finishing again 15th this year.
So you're going to miss the consistency with that one.
Yeah, stay in 15th. Don't move up. Don't move down. Stay in 15th because there's one other team that I reckon is going to finish lower than them.
Well, that's Mr. Consistency for you. Now, the Parramatta Eels. Well, what hasn't been said about the Eels already? Because I feel like a lot has been said about the Eels.
Yet again, they said this year's not last year. Said this year's our year. They're probably going to say that again this year. They've said that for the last few years, and they still fall short. Maybe that they don't say that, they'll be okay.
Well, I mean, they started off pretty well. If you look at the first 10 rounds of the season, they were 9-1 to start. By the halfway point, they were about 10-3.
Yeah, when I saw that start, I thought,
they were running third behind Melbourne and Penrith and the Rabbitohs. Well, in the months, Penrith, if Melbourne, Penrith, and the Rabbitohs, they were running third.
Yeah, I thought, oh, here we go. Parramatta going really well. But something happened.
I mean, yeah, Storm, Panthers, Eels, Rabbitohs were the top four at that point. The Roosters and the Sea Eagles, along with the Cowboys and the Dragons, made up the top 8.
Yeah. But then come the end of the season, that top 8 looked a fair bit different.
Slightly different.
Or slightly different, but
I mean, they were competitive, but back-to-back losses to both Manly and the Rabbitohs. And I think this argument again that they were exposed to an extent against the genuine top 4 contenders is, well, I mean, fair enough. They didn't fare well against either side, and they were in very winnable positions in those games.
Yes.
And then the move, they didn't really handle the move to Queensland all that well.
No.
Narrow loss to the Raiders, smashed by the Roosters, smashed by the Rabbitohs, smashed by Manly big time.
Yeah.
I'm on the Sunshine Coast. Tommy Turbo, another standout game. But I will tell you this. This is probably the other thing about the Eels we have to remember. They are the only side to have beaten the Melbourne Storm twice this year, last year.
They were.
The only side to have beaten Melbourne twice.
Everyone else is lucky to beat them once.
And in the 2 games where the Eels were full strength against the Panthers, the margins were 1 and 2, respectively.
So they did perform when they wanted to.
They stood up against the Panthers, and they can beat the Storm. But it's just that at late year fade out where they were really struggling didn't do them any favors. And going from 4th down to 6th, but still did enough to, I mean, again, finish in the semi-finals.
Should have been further than that.
Well, I mean, from the way they started, they could have been minor premiers, if not second place. Depending on how other sides performed random. But they just need to get that end of the year right. This is probably the third straight. This has been the third straight year they have made the finals. And this was a situation where they could have finished top 4 for the second year in a row. And they just couldn't hang on with that.
No, they couldn't. So something's not right. Is it fatigue?
Well, at the same time, they did have key injury concerns as well.
True.
Losing Reed Marnie and Mitchell Moses at various points during the year. Between rounds 18 and 20, they were missing Moses. Between 10 and 12, there was no Dylan Brown. And regarding Reed Marnie, he didn't even play the final month and a half of the season running into the finals.
Yes, that did hurt them though.
So consistency in the spine at key moments really hurt the Eels.
Yeah, which would be something that they look to improve on this.
But other than that, it's another successful year for the Eels. They still showed they can give something to the Premiership and to the league, but they just need to back it up.
They certainly do. And the run in the finals that they had, I personally reckon they should have gone on a bit further than what they did. But
they would have upset the Panthers in that semi-final had Penrith not milked the old rules to their advantage.
Yep.
I genuinely believe Parramatta could have beaten Penrith.
Yeah,
and they could have beaten, and I honestly, they could have beaten Melbourne too, and make it into the grand final. But that's a what.
I don't know about Melbourne, but they should have won against Penrith easy. Well, not easy, but they should have beaten Penrith.
Now, the Eels stand-up player, no surprises who this is going to be. It's Isaiah Papali'i.
Again.
No.
Well, you know.
Well, in 25 appearances, is the Dally M's second row of the year, scored 7 tries, had 109 tackle breaks, 30 offloads, and ran for 3,753 running meters.
That is a massive, brilliant.
In a breakout year for him, having moved from the Warriors in the off-season, looking for a fresh start and getting it.
He definitely did get it, and he had a rip of a season. How many times did you have him as your man of the match last year?
Several times.
Exactly.
But amongst Clint Gutherson and others, I would have to say.
Yes, but he was one of the most consistent ones that you had selected as man of the match all year.
It was basically the same answer as picking Tom Trbojevic from Manly.
True.
It was just that situation right there.
He was unstoppable.
It's just unfortunate that he's going to be leaving for the Tigers at the end of this year.
Well, yes, but it's a good pickup by the Tigers if he continues on his strong, strong form that he was in last season.
That's the question. Whilst Papali'i leaves at the end of this year, those that left at the end of last year, Joey Lussick left for St. Helens, returning to the Betfred Super League after 1 year with Parramatta. Blake Ferguson left for the NEC Green Rockets, but then White Powder got involved in the dance floor, and he's currently residing, dining out, I should say, with the Japanese prison system.
Yeah. Will
Smith ended up joining the Gold Coast Titans, so the loss of a very handy utility there, as well as the departures of Sam Hughes and Michael Oldfield, with their destinations yet to be confirmed.
And also Keegan Hipgrave.
Medically retired. Very sad.
Yes. And they've only gained Mitch Tran from the Titans and Bailey Simonson from the Raiders.
They have also gained Opahiki Ogden from the Canterbury Bulldogs on a train and trial deal, whilst Curtis Scott remains stood down, his contract with the Eels unlikely to be registered while he's still got a court date hanging over his shoulder.
Well, there you go. The biggest loss there, I don't know. Well, kicking the hip goes disappointing that he had to medically retire.
It often is, but there's nothing you can do about those ones.
No.
They just happen.
Yeah. Bailey Simonson signing on. That's a good signing, right?
Very interesting signing, because he was sort of your everyman in the backline at the Raiders, if not coming off the interchange for Ricky Stewart. But I tell you what, it worked out very well for him.
Yes. And that obviously worked out. They caught the attention of Parramatta. You know, hello, we want this bloke. Let's go after him. And he agreed to the terms and signed with them.
I think he will get an opportunity with the Eels at some point throughout the season, if not a first-choice winger alongside Hayes Dunster.
I'd say so.
Now, looking at the Eels' first 5 weeks, this is what they are up against. First off, got to face the Titans at the CommBank Stadium in round 1 on a Sunday afternoon.
Parramatta.
Then they got to travel to Cronulla to take on the Sharks in round 2.
Should be another victory there.
Traveling to Melbourne to face the Melbourne Storm. Well, that'll be a tough one.
Well, Parramatta can't beat them.
It'll be 50-50. I'll be generous. That's a 50-50 game right there.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Round 4, they're up against St. George Illawarra, back at home again. Eels. Maybe 50-50. If the Dragons don't stun them again.
Yeah, 50-50, depending on how well the Dragons perform at the first few weeks.
To play the Titans twice in round 5, this time up on the Gold Coast, and because it's Easter Monday, they'll be back at home again, facing the Tigers.
Which will be a Parramatta victory.
Yes, it will be. Well, it's going to be interesting because Michael Ennis joined the Eels coaching staff in the off-season. And he's very optimistic about Parramatta's prospects,
Yes, he is.
to say the least.
What is he focusing on the dummy half role, or is he more of a whole team kind of guy?
Well, quoting the Fox Sports article, or that was mentioning him about the lack of player turnover, that he believes that they are contenders this year. Yeah, and this is from the article, and I quote, "The lucky thing for the Eels is there hasn't been that much turnover. They found form again the back end of last season, had a big turnaround when the wheels fell off for a period, and they were able to wrestle it back. Finished the season on a real high, albeit in a loss to the Panthers, but I think that many would believe that they were the better side that night," unquote. Well, they were.
They were.
They were the better side on that. No.
It's just an unfortunate
And he
result.
likes the balance of their squad as well. He says, and of course, quoting again, "The balance of the squad is looking very good for the Eels in 2022. But the question is that consistency."
Yeah.
And a real interesting comment here, watching the Eels train over the summer and the intensity which they have trained and the relationships Brad has got in his team, I can't see why they can't be one of those other top teams contending at the back end of the year.
That's when I generally struggle at the back end of the year.
Well, that's what they got to get right. If they get that right, Parramatta can do anything.
They can. It's just whether they will.
Well, that's the question, is it? Can, and they do so. Realistically, I think they are one of those sides. We've already talked about the top 6 big sides in the NRL at the moment. The Eels are one of them. Not in the top 4, but they're right on the edge of the 4. And I think they are one of 6 sides that can realistically win the premiership this year.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
But because I've already declared who my grand final and premiers are, I got to see where they fit, because the last 3 times the Eels have made the finals, they have bowed out in the semi-final despite a good first week or a competitive first week at the finals.
Yeah, so really, for them to go deep in the finals, has to see how well they go back in the season. That's all it's going to come down to, I reckon.
I think the Eels, I think they will go very close this time. I think they will overcome their semi-final hoodoo. I think they will go within 8 this time. I think they will go within 80 minutes of the grand final from outside the top 4, but still, unfortunately, fall agonizingly short of trying to get into the grand final. But it's a rough estimate. But with the Storm, the Panthers, the Roosters, and the Sea Eagles all ahead of them, if they can knock off any one of those 4, and twice at that, I think they will do extremely well. So, my final prediction, if they can get things right, which I believe they can, I think they can go within 80 minutes of the grand and final. And for this testimony from Michael Ennis's comments to Fox Sports, last year the Eels finished 6th and were knocked out in the semi-final in controversial circumstances. I'm backing them to do one better. I'm going to say the Eels finish 5th on the ladder.
Yeah. I had to put Parramatta somewhere on my final ladder. There's just something about them this season that I can't pinpoint what it is though. There's something about them this season I don't think is going to make them go in the top 8 at all. I just can't pinpoint it, but I could be wrong. Hate me or you like Parramatta fans, I've got them in 12th.
Ouch. That's rough.
Like I said, there's something about the squad that they have this season that doesn't sit right with me. I don't know what it is though. That's why I've got them in 12th.
Got them in 12th. All right. Well, we'll leave either that, because we're looking at the final NRL team to cover today. It is, of course, our reigning premiers and everyone's favorite team to hate at the moment, depending who you are, the Penrith Panthers.
What can you say about their season in 2021? There's nothing bad you could say about their season.
Well, how do you sum up the premiers this year? And that is a genuine question. This is not hyperbole. This is a genuine question because this is a side that went 12-0 to start the year. We're literally running first for the majority of it, or for a large part of the early season.
Yes.
Only had a couple of hiccups, but other than that, relatively unchallenged.
They were. And
their defense in the opening 3 months was absolutely strong. I mean, in 0, 10, 6, 10, 12, 6, 16, 0, 12, 12, and 4. Those were all the margins they conceded in victory.
Did they ever concede again more than, like, did they ever let in more than 12 points in the game at all this season? I don't think they did.
They've only let in 3 tries on 4 occasions. The 28-16 win over Manly, and when winning, of course. 34-16 against St. George Illawarra when they won. 30-16 in the win over the Tigers. And 30-16 against the Warriors.
It was very rare that they let more than that amount of points get on them. Like, it was very rare that, if not at all, they didn't get 20 put against them. Like,
they only had that done to them twice, where the defense went out the window. 26-6 loss against the West Tigers in round 13, and the 37-10 loss against the Melbourne Storm at Suncorp Stadium.
Yeah, so they were too consistent. Like, you can't be too consistent. They were very consistent during the whole season, though.
But they were hungry for the premiership, and they got it.
They did.
I mean, they had to do it the hard way because they lost to the Rabbitohs in an upset in the qualifying final.
Yeah, and who did they verse in the grand final?
It just happened to be South Sydney.
Yeah.
Where the result was reversed and they narrowly escaped 14-12 victors.
Which I still reckon was also maybe something wrong in that final.
But you're right, they did it the hard way. Controversially winning against Parramatta 8-6 in the semi-final, knocking off Melbourne 10-6 in the preliminary final.
They should have lost against Parramatta, but then if they didn't lose against Parramatta, they should have lost against Melbourne too.
And they won 14-12 in the grand final to win their 3rd premiership in club history and their first one in 18 years.
Yeah. But now, credit where credit's due, they did deserve it after all.
Yeah,
after
absolutely.
A few controversial games.
Now, the standout player, really, again, no surprise, is the Dally M halfback of the year, Nathan Cleary. In 20 appearances for the club, the co-captain scored 10 tries, had 21 try assists, forced 26 goal line dropouts, kicked 94 goals from 110 attempts, and had 19 offloads.
That is unbelievable, especially like the goal line dropouts and his goal kicking. That is unbelievable stats right there.
It's maddening. It is absolutely maddening.
I don't think anyone else came close to that.
Well, they were great at point scorers, don't get me wrong, but...
Yes, but like goal line dropouts and that, I don't think anyone came close to that.
Adam Reynolds, Jerome Hughes, and Daly Cherry Evans, those are probably the only 3 I can think of that would have come close to that.
Yeah, but they'll probably in... Oh, no, but yeah, I agree with those 3.
So now the Premiers have had a bit of a raid against them, and this has been the result of what happens when you win the Premiership. You can't keep them all. Of course, Billy Burns was lost to St. George Illawarra mid-2021. Didn't really have a say in how the season panned out. Kurt Capewell, on the other hand, has ended up joining the Brisbane Broncos. Matt Burton, the Dally M Centre of the Year, joining the Canterbury Bulldogs, while the other centre in the grand final, Paul Momorowski, is returning to the Sydney Roosters 4 years after initially leaving. Tavita Pangai Jr. is leaving for the Bulldogs after joining from the Brisbane Broncos. Tyrone May, after being sacked in disgrace, has joined the Catalan and Dragons. Brett Naylor also linking up with the Canterbury Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs did go on a bit of a raid, you could say. They're gone.
And there's still one more to come.
Okay, then.
Well, I am talking about Viliami Kikau.
Well, yes, but that's not until 2023.
Three.
But on the Ganny front, they got Sean O'Sullivan from the Warriors, Chris Smith from the Bulldogs, and Christian Crichton from the Bulldogs. So the Penrith are going on a raid.
On a training trial, while also adding Tom Jenkins, Maverick Geyer, and Preston Ricky to their ranks in the top 30.
Yes. So Penrith did a raid on the Dogs. They get 2 players, and while they lost 3 to that team as well.
So the Panthers' first 5 rounds are as follows. Of course, they are going to open the season up against the Manly Sea Eagles.
That's going to be
at home.
Awesome game.
That will be something to watch. Cleary versus Turbo.
Yes.
Don't know who's got more money on than that. Now, round 2, they will travel down to Kogarah once again to face St. George Illawarra.
Well,
too strong for the Dragons.
Well, I don't know. I'm gonna, because of the Dragons will be doing tributes to a few legends that are
Johnny Raper and Norm Proven.
And there was someone else just in the last couple of days as well.
So yeah, St. George really.
So at least 3 that I can think of in the off season. So as a tribute, I'm going to say hopefully the Dragons win that one.
We'll see how that goes. Now, round 3, of course, as we touched on with Newcastle, they are travelling out to Carrington Park at Bathurst once again. Yeah, Newcastle are going to get crushed.
Yeah.
April Fool's Day, it is the grand final rematch, which is no joke. I think they'll win that one too. Round 5, they've got the Canterbury Bulldogs at CommBank Stadium in Sydney. And on Good Friday, they will play the Brisbane Broncos at home.
So you've got a fairly straightforward side, you could say. Straightforward opening few weeks.
Yeah.
The
2 top 4 sides and, well, 2 top 4, 1 top 8, and 2 that finished outside the 8.
I'm going to say the toughest one will be that grand final rematch.
You think so?
I reckon so.
Even without Adam Reynolds?
Yeah, South will put up a good fight.
All right, that's the way you think. My question is, this will be the 3rd straight year the Panthers are coming off that they've either been short of a grand final or have now been the premiers. My question is, can they do what the Roosters of 2018-19 did and go back to back?
No.
All right.
That's my answer. No.
Any particular reason? And just to try and break it down?
Well, the losses that they've got, no Catewell, no Pengai, no Momorowski, no Burton, no Naden. I know I'm missing Tyrone May, but he didn't really play that much fun. But their losses are the big ones, and they're going to be hard. Yes, they've still got good quality players there. Don't get me wrong, but just those losses are going to hurt them.
Yeah, you're definitely right. And it's going to be a brand new right edge for the Panthers next year, with Isaac Tago going to be given the first crack at right centre. And of course, Liam Martin back starting on the right edge alongside Charlie Staines and Nathan Cleary, if Staines is even picked.
If Cleary gets picked for round 1 as well.
They're still going to be dominant. Don't get me wrong. They're still going to be up in the top 2 when it matters most.
True.
But I think...
I don't know.
But with sides around them, and I have said this before, sides around them, of course, Melbourne is still the gold standard. Then you got the Roosters and the Sea Eagles hunting them down.
Yeah.
And they're going to genuinely be much stronger in 2022 than they were in 2021. Both of them.
Yeah,
And if
especially the
Parramatta
Roosters.
clicks, that's another side that they got to contend with as well.
But they're a bit more inconsistent though. Just a little bit.
Fortunately, they don't have to worry about the World Cup challenge like the Melbourne Storm before then,
Unfortunately.
and which only hurt St. Helens really in all of this. But at the end of the day, I think something's got to give. I think they will still be a top 4 contender, but I really don't see them realistically going back to back.
No.
I think, like the Eels, they too will fall short in the preliminary final.
Well, so you've got them finishing where on the ladder?
Well, last year, the Panthers were second and were crowned premiers of the NRL. I've got them finishing second again. I think they'll still be behind the Melbourne Storm.
So, I reckon they're going to slide down ever so slightly, just because of my reason before. I'm going to let them finish 5th on the ladder, just because of all the quality players that have lost in Burton, Nathan, Kate Will, Tengai, and Molinovsky. They're still going to be a good side, but they'll just slide down a little bit to 5th.
But still remaining competitive in your eyes.
Yes, remaining competitive, but just not as high up as what they were last year.
Fair enough. That is absolutely fair right there. Now, the NRL All-Stars game was on over the weekend, and it was a 16-10 victory for the Maori All-Stars over the Indigenous in trying conditions at CommBank Stadium.
That was a surprise victory to me, to be quite honest with you. Like we both said last week, they both had good teams on paper. It's just that we both went towards the Indigenous side because of the better forward pack, and Maori somehow came out on top.
The wet weather played, I think, to the Maori's strength because apart from David Fifita busting them up on the left side defensively, it took some time for the Indigenous All-Stars to click back into gear with Tyrell Sloan injecting that little bit of speed and pace ace at the back end.
True.
For 1 hour, it was all Maori. First with Cody Nikorima's try, and then the crash over tries of Isan Masters and Joe Tarpany, the other serving co-captain, and they just didn't really... Aside from the sparks that were shown from the bench, and well, when I say from the bench, I mean the scuffles.
I mean, how good? When I saw those scuffles, I thought, wow.
I was just like, that's rugby league right there. That's rugby league in a nutshell. How good is it
to have footy back? The scuffles, sin bins, they had everything. They had the weather involved. It was a brilliant game. Like, it was good to have rugby league back on our screens.
The Indigenous All-Stars did make a game of it in the second half after being down 16-6 at one stage, but
too little, too late, I'd say.
It was definitely too little, too late. Very unorthodox from some players. I think Morgan Harper playing out on an edge was very unorthodox, but it played out all right. And I think there were some standouts. I think Shakai Mitchell was a very interesting choice for Laurie Daly to make.
Yes,
and he didn't disappoint. We would have to say in some regards to what the Rabbitohs are looking at. At 8 runs per 62 meters with an average play the ball speed of 3.4 seconds, which is, you'd have to say that's pretty fast for a front rower.
Yes, it is very much so.
Although there could probably be those that have done it far.
Oh, faster. Yeah, there probably is. But, for your first time out, like NRL, you could say an NRL match. But how good was it to see Andrew Fifita back out there?
I think that was an absolute miracle that he actually was able to play again.
And he got amongst it all just how he left, pretty much.
All right, so this raises the question. Does Andrew Fifita be selected for round 1 of the season? Does he earn round 1 selection?
I'm not quite sure. I don't think. No, he got put on report.
So he's more than likely not going to be available for round 1 then.
Well, I'm pretty sure he got put on report when he got sent to the sin bin. That was quickly followed by Jordan Rapana, who's suspended.
Who's already going to miss the opening game of the season now.
So I'd say Fafita will probably follow suit.
All right. So what have we made? Because I think what the All-Stars has done, it showed for the Bulldogs and the Sharks, it showed what their left edge for Canterbury, centre wing, and the halves of the Sharks. How do you think they did it on audition?
Yeah. Well, whoever's going to be the goal kicker for the Sharks need to sharpen up their kicking a little bit. Whether
that be Hines or Trindle.
Because Hines was off the game, and I think Trindle was as well. So they need to find who's going to be the goal kicker, and whoever it's going to be needs to sharpen it up a bit.
And what do you reckon about the Maoris? Aries, regarding the Warriors halves of Harris Tavita and Nikorima? Who do you reckon did better to partner? Well, to make that case, the partner Sean Johnson in the halves come round 1.
I'm still sticking by Nikorima.
All right.
I've always said Nikorima Johnson. I'm still going to stick by that.
So you're going Nikorima Johnson. I'm going Johnson Harris Tavita.
Yeah, I've always said that, but I'm going to probably more than likely be wrong.
All right. Well, that's all the NRL action from us, but don't go anywhere. We'll have the Betfred Super League Round 1-2 debrief coming up next. We'll see you very, very shortly. Be back in a tick.